Today in the Tristen Law Show, I'm going to give you fair warning. Unplug your Alexa device, because today you're going to meet the Bubblegum Princess Alexia Nicole, and we're going to deep dive into inequalities for Canadian pro wrestlers. And that's today on the Tristen Law Show. Welcome to the Tristen Law Show, where I introduce you to the personalities in and out of the pro wrestling ring. The unique part is you don't have to be a pro wrestling fan to enjoy this podcast. If it is your first time here, new episodes drop Wednesdays, and welcome. I'm your host, Tristen Law, and I'm glad that you're here for another episode 32, 3 plus 2. Oh man, it's just, I never thought I'd hit 32 episodes. But I'm glad that you're here because we're going to be featuring another personality in and out of the pro wrestling ring. The A part is my little Canadian accent there. My sister's probably rolling her eyes if she's listening, because we're still in Canada this episode, and we're going to meet the Bubblegum Princess Alexia Nicole, who will be joining us. Alexia has been making her rounds in the pro wrestling business, and she's definitely carving out her path. She was ranked not on PWI's, Pro Wrestling Illustrated's, top 500 wrestlers in the world. They put her in a much smaller box, which is amazing. Alexia Nicole was ranked on PWI, Pro Wrestling Illustrated's, top 100 women professional wrestlers in the world. You can easily find her previous work on Impact Wrestling and on YouTube of other promotions, and you'll understand why she is where she is. But Alexia and myself, we're going to talk about how she got that opportunity with Impact Wrestling. We're going to talk about vacationing in Canada. Yes, Canada's my favorite country, in case you didn't know. We're going to tackle that big problem that last episode's guest, Canadian professional wrestler Jeremy Prophet, showed us, and much, much more. Next week is WrestleMania. It is the Super Bowl in pro wrestling. And since this is technically a pro wrestling podcast, I have to stay within tradition. And what we're going to do next week is that we are going to talk about the top 5 WrestleManias of the decade, but I'm going to need your help. Go to TristenLawShow.com and find the link in the description to vote on the top 5 WrestleManias in your opinion of the last decade. I'm going to be joined by Dave of Dave Knows Wrestling and Frank Mandolini, my pod brother of the Last Minute Wrestling Podcast, to tackle such a fun subject, and it'll be simple enough that you don't have to be a pro wrestling fan. Up next on the Tristen Law Show, it will be Alexia Nicole. I am Tristen Law, and this is the Tristen Law Show. Hey you, yeah, I'm talking to you. That shirt you're wearing is so not cool. Why don't you head on over to TristenLawShow.com and get yourself a new shirt. Not only will you be cool, but you'll also be supporting the show. What are you waiting for? Go now and get a hat too while you're at it. Thank me later. We're the show at TristenLawShow.com. Welcome back to the Tristen Law Show, and I hope that you're having a great time. My next guest represents Canada. She's the Bubblegum Princess and ranked number 55 out of 100 pro wrestlers in the world by Pro Wrestling Illustrated in 2020. I'd like to welcome Alexia Nicole to the Tristen Law Show. Alexia, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining me. I would just like to apologize to anybody listening. Make sure you plug out your Alexa device, and her name is not Alexa, it's Alexia, but I had to plug out mine in order for this whole thing to work today, because I tested it. I said, hey, Alexia, and the thing started spinning, so I didn't want any issues, but I'm glad that you are here.
Thank you. My boyfriend, actually, he's had to unplug his sometimes, because he'll say my name and it'll start going off.
The worst thing is when I'm watching WWE and they're talking about Alexa Bliss, and they mention Alexa Bliss' name, it goes, I do not know how to do that command. I will throw you out the window, Alexa. Well, welcome. What's been going on for you in Canada since COVID and the whole lockdown? What's been going on? Tell us what's going on.
Honestly, not a ton. Like everything's been pretty shut down since I guess since pretty much a year now. We had like a bit of an opening last summer into the fall, and then everything like as soon as it got kind of cold, everything just stopped again.
So Canada was actually one of those places because I love Canada. That's my
Hmm.
second favorite country. I love Canada because I have Canadian family. I have a sister that lives in Hamilton. I have customers. I have family that lives in Toronto, so I frequent
Yeah.
Canada a lot.
Oh, cool.
So I was in Hamilton, and actually, funny though, before they locked the whole entire world down, I was in Toronto watching a Raptors game, and the next week when I came back, you weren't allowed to leave the country. So shout out to my Canadian family and brethren, and Putin and Hamburger Restaurant. This is not a paid broadcasting, but to get this out of the way, how did you stumble upon the moniker the Bubblegum Princess, and what does it mean to you?
So when did I come up with it? I was maybe like a couple years into wrestling, and I used to chew gum when I got nervous because I would grind my teeth a lot. So it helped with that. One day I had bubble gum and I was cutting a promo and I blew a bubble, and that's literally how it started. Everyone just thought it was like it worked. They are like, "Oh, you look great! Like it works with your gimmick." And I didn't even have a gimmick at the time, so it was perfect because it gave me one. But yeah, that's literally it. It was like it wasn't like a well thought out thing. It was just like a happenstance. Like, okay, I have bubble gum. I blew a bubble, and now people love this photo of me blowing a bubble.
So while you're working in the ring, you're chewing bubblegum and blowing bubbles?
Sometimes.
I watch Dolph Ziggler in WWE chew gum and wrestle and stuff like that. And let me tell you, I guess it's a skill to chew
Mhm.
gum and wrestle at the same time because I'm afraid I'll choke. I'm afraid I'll take one
Yeah,
bump
it
and
depends
I'll
on the
choke.
match.
So shout out to you for having that skill that is so you can chew bubblegum and kick ass at the same time, right?
Yeah, it's honestly it's hard. Like there's definitely a lot of matches where like halfway through I'll pull out like a tissue from my top and put it in and just like hide it because I can't keep going. But yeah, you get used to it.
That's usually where I hide my contact lens. When it slips out of my eye, I slip it right on my knee pad.
Oh my God.
It's happened. Somebody rakes my eyes or something. The contact goes out,
Yeah.
and then while I'm working in the ring, I see it and I grab it, and while I'm selling, slip it right in my knee pad, and then I go disinfect it because we know knee pads are gross. But
Oh, oh yeah.
so I mentioned that you were ranked on PWI's top 100 woman in 2020. How did you find out that you were ranked?
So I found out I was ranked. I had gotten it's one of them. I guess one of the editors had DM'd me on Twitter, basically saying, you know, we're ranked. You're ranked on it. We'll do a quick interview with you, but they weren't going to tell me my ranking. So I didn't know my ranking until the actual list came out, and I was very shocked to see how high it was on that list.
Everybody has a really funny story. You are the first person that I've ever asked who got ranked on the PWI, and you said that they reached out to you. Some people actually said that they didn't even know that they were ranked because somebody in the wrestling world, a fan, tagged them on Twitter, and that's how they found out. So that's pretty cool that they reached out to you for an interview as well too, to rank you on PWI 2020.
Yeah, like I had the first time I was ranked, I had no idea. I was like 70 something, somewhere around there. But I had no idea. So that was cool like to find out because I had found out the same way through fans. But yeah, this time around they had asked me beforehand and basically told me I was going to be on it, but to find out where I was on it was definitely a shock.
So you were ranked this year, like I said, at number 55, if I'm not mistaken. What do you intend to do differently to rank higher for 2021's list?
God, I don't know. It's gonna be hard to even get on 2021's list. I definitely hope to wrestle more, and it's gonna be hard because I've maybe had a handful of matches since 2020, well, since everything shut down, really. Wrestle more, just kind of get more exposure too, because like that'll help you get noticed, get on the list, more people will see you, help out with that. So definitely more exposure, I think, would actually be at the top of that.
For anyone looking to make the list, Alexia, what advice do you have for them?
If you're looking to make the list, film your matches. Even if you don't think they're good, put them online. Just get your content out there and have good promo pictures. It makes a huge difference.
I want you to put yourself over, all right? Some people may
Okay.
say that this answer that you're going to give is really arrogant, but they need to just listen and roll with you because you are the star in the spotlight of this episode. So if you could place yourself anywhere on 2021's top 100 women, where do you place yourself and why?
Ooh, I think I'll put myself in like honestly, probably at the lower end, like anywhere from like 80 to 100, only because I haven't really worked that much this year. I was definitely on like a streak of good matches and like high profile matches, literally up until COVID hit.
Right.
And so because of that, like, I mean, I'm not fortunate enough to live in the States where there's still a lot of wrestling happening, all things considered. But yeah, I would put myself around there because my work has improved. It's definitely improved, but my opportunities to show that have really dwindled down to almost nothing.
Okay, and so let's make this question a little bit more fair. For 2020's list, where would you have ranked yourself?
I think the same spot, to be honest. I think where I am, I would stay. I think it's a good spot. I think, God, it sounds so arrogant to say, but like, I definitely like feel like I was at the top in Canada in terms of like women, in terms of workers in general. I felt like I was, God, I sound so arrogant.
But we know you're not being arrogant. Ladies and gentlemen that are listening, she's not being arrogant. She's just answering the question. I'm really
not trying to be, but I definitely felt in my heart that I was on a really good track to do some stuff. And I was like just going with it. I was having opportunity after opportunity and I was delivering. And yeah, it's literally just what happened with the world.
Well, fair enough. I hope to see that you do make it on 2021 because for me, I always say anybody that I've ever shared a locker room with, stood in the ring with, or ever had in this podcast, I wish everybody success and good health in the wrestling business. Because for those that don't understand, it's not easy. I mean, for the lack of a better term, it's the show business. And there's not many spaces for people. And if you can get on one, if you can be ranked 55 out of 100, scratch that. If you can be ranked 100 out of 100, you're on somebody's radar and it's an accolade. So I can't wait to see where you rank for 2021 and the next coming years.
Thank you. I do hope I'm on the list, even if like it's like the bottom. I'll take it.
So let's go back in the Wayback Machine, or for my listeners that listen all the time, let's get back into DeLorean, and we're going to hit 1.21 gigawatts, and we want to go back to your earliest pro wrestling memory. What is it? My earliest pro wrestling memory is I remember I was wrestling around with my brother. He's like 10 years older than me, so he was just beating me up. And on the background, we had wrestling on, and I know it wasn't live because I was too young for it, but I looked up and I saw Undertaker throw Mankind off the cell. Ooh. And that is my first memory of wrestling. I remember that memory as well too because we had how do I say this, free cable. Okay, fine, it was illegal cable, but I remember watching that and being like mesmerized, thinking that this guy was dead and that he could never be the same again. But that's one way to get put in the wrestling business. What did you think about it when you saw Mankind get thrown off the Hell in the Cell by the Undertaker? It honestly didn't even occur to me how like dangerous it was because I was so young. I couldn't have been any older than like 7. So I was just like, oh my God, he just threw this man. And the match kept going. It wasn't even like it was over after. More happened. I was just like, these are like insanely strong people. And that's literally what I thought for a long time. Like, these are just like freaks of nature, just incredibly strong, athletic people. And turns out, like, yeah, most of them are. I was going to say, because we are freaks of nature, that we want to get into a place to beat our bodies up for people's entertainment. And don't get it wrong, I love it. I'm very flattered when somebody pays money and comes to a show and watch me beat the heck out of their favorite babyface. I love it. So we know what your first pro wrestling memory was, Alexia. What is your first pro wrestling event that you ever attended? It was it a Raw? It was either a Raw or SmackDown. I honestly don't remember which one it was, but it was a Raw or SmackDown in the, at the time it was the Air Canada Center. Now it's called the Rogers Center. But yeah, I remember my sister came with me. She got a Randy Orton shirt. I got this Dolph Ziggler shirt that was way too big for me, still too big. Yeah, I don't even remember what else was on the card. I just remember we got those shirts
and that was the first show. Took a long time to get there. Took a long time to get home.
So my sister lives in Hamilton, and I love your transportation of your country, or of at least Ontario, because I can pay 13 American dollars and get on a bus, and an hour later, I'm at your arena. So I agree, it does take a long time, but it's a beautiful arena, and they have really long hot dogs that are cheaper in American money. I love it. That's my place.
I'm glad they're cheap in American money, because in Canadian money, they're not cheap.
I'm putting your country over. If you're looking to go to a vacation, go to Canada, because Canada is where it's at.
I mean, I recommend, unless you're looking for a warm place, like just only come for like maybe a couple months a year, but I definitely recommend, like, it's a gorgeous country and there's a lot to do even just in Ontario.
For example,
I mean, the city of Toronto in itself has like a ton of things. You've got the Rogers Center. You've got, if you want to go see a baseball game, you've got the Sky Dome, CN Tower, Ripley's Aquarium. Toronto has this thing called Kensington Market, which is just a lot of like smaller shops and restaurants of like all different cuisines and stuff. Really good. I really recommend that. Even I did a drive out to Nova Scotia a couple of years ago. Beautiful. Just like it's so beautiful there. Montreal's got great nightlife. Yeah, like if you're really into nature, like Northern Ontario, it's your place to go.
So I'm not really into nature. I'm more into the urban. So I love Toronto. I love that around the downtown area, and I really like trains. They have a little train museum there, and I was trying to go when I was there for SummerSlam a couple of years ago, but because of time, it didn't really work out. But
yes, I almost forgot about the train museum. I've set up a couple events like outside of wrestling just to like help like decorate in that museum. Yeah.
Huh. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. One of my last favorite things about Canada before we move on is your Fanta. Do you understand that that your Fanta soda or pop, as you guys call it, some of you guys call it, is different than what we sell here in America?
I honestly had no idea, but I know there's some differences between snacks.
So in America, we have this chemically engineered thing called high fructose corn syrup that we put in all of our foods and drinks to sweeten it. In Canada, in their soda or pop, you guys put, wait for it, sugar.
Yes.
So you guys put sugar in there, but your Fanta is not really soda. It's more like juice with carbonation in it. And when I go to Canada, I'm going to say it now in case the border agents are listening. I always smuggle a case of Fanta back across the border when I come back. So Alexia, growing up, who were your favorite pro wrestlers?
I mean, The Undertaker was a favorite just because like that first memory really stuck out to me. He was a favorite. Eddie Guerrero was a favorite. Mickie James was a favorite. Molly Holly was a favorite. Trish was a favorite. That honestly, like that era of women, I really looked up to. Just because I'm a girl watching wrestling. Yes, it's a lot of like bikini contests and stuff, but it's still cool for me to see they're having matches. Trish and Victoria beat the shit out of each other.
Yep.
In a no DQ match, and I thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen at the time. So yeah, those are, I guess, honestly, that era of workers, that like early to mid 2000s. A lot of my favorites are in there.
Being a person of color, a lot of people that are not those don't understand that when you're watching television and you see somebody that looks like you doing really good, for example, Kofi Kingston winning the WWE Championship, or, Charlotte Flair being a part of the main event in WrestleMania, a lot of people don't understand how emotional that is to see somebody that looks like you that's doing something that is not normal. So I'm glad that those women, you were able to look up to them when you were growing up.
Yeah, like it's just, I mean, like you said, people of color, women, like how often do you see them doing cool things? Right. It just seems like, it's so rare sometimes that when it finally happens, it's emotional. Like it makes you happy.
Like for me, I always tell people, like, I hate being typecasted. Oh, because I'm a black man, I have to be the rapper. Or when they screw up. So a lot of people don't understand that are not wrestlers. Sometimes you give the person your music and they screw up on the music and your music doesn't play. So when you go out there, they normally play like rap music for me. Don't get it wrong. I like DMX and Biggie, but come on, did you have to play that? Couldn't you play something else? So looking at your in-ring persona, out of all the people that you looked up to while you were growing up, are any of them embodied inside of you?
Honestly, no. which I didn't really realize until right now. I didn't really put anyone into my my in-ring persona. It was just a lot of like pop culture that I looked at, like a lot of like Disney princesses. I watched Mean Girls a ton. I'm like, okay, what can I take from Regina George and kind of make it my own? Like I looked at more other media sources because I didn't want to be exactly the same as anybody else. I wanted to be different. So I tried not to use all of my favorites as at least not character wise. Like in the ring, I definitely do some moves that I've seen my favorite wrestlers do, but character wise, I tried to look at other sources.
What was the moment that you decided to yourself, you have to step into the pro wrestling ring and become a wrestler?
It was around WrestleMania 24. I don't even remember if it was like during WrestleMania or if it was like just before. It was around that time because I remember just watching all of the commercials for it, and that was the time where I'm like, okay, I can do this. I'm ready to do this. And I was definitely way too young to think that I could be ready to do this. I was only maybe 13, but that was that around that time period is when I decided I would want to be a wrestler.
I clearly, vividly remember WrestleMania 24. I was living in Orlando at the time, and watching WrestleMania 23. We used to watch it at Hooters, the bar that is known for its wings. They have the wings.
Oh yeah.
And I remember sitting there, and we were all sitting there, and then we saw that WrestleMania 24 was coming to Orlando. We were so excited because nothing other than Disney or Universal happens in Orlando. We were so excited for it. I remember the fireworks going off, right? Because I was trying to score tickets with my job. And I remember living so close that I could look out the door and see the fireworks while it was happening on the television.
Oh, that's so cool.
That is our connection.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
That is our connection. That was the first WrestleMania that I was close enough to that I never attended. Because even though I lived in the Bronx, I was still close to Madison Square Garden, but I was closer to the Citrus Bowl or Camping World Stadium or whatever they want to call it today.
Yeah, well, that's still so cool. Oh my God.
You see,
I've never been to a Mania, so like even just being close to one is like the coolest thing.
Let me tell you something. If you ever go to a WrestleMania, do not ever waste your money and just sit far back. Some people, I remember a friend going to that WrestleMania 24, and he spent $75 a ticket because they were trying to pack the place. I clearly remember them trying to sell standing room only. So he paid $75, and you can't see anything. You're just there to say that you were there.
Yeah.
So for WrestleMania 29, I believe, the first one that was in MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, I paid $150. And not only did I fall asleep, I wasn't close enough to watch it. I was watching it on the big Jumbotron.
Oh, yeah.
So from then I decided if I'm ever going to go to WrestleMania, I'm going for the gusto. So for me, when I did my first WrestleMania, I went to the second one in Orlando. I think it was 33. And we sat so close that when everybody was walking back, because nobody walked up the ramp to go back to Gorilla to go backstage, they walked to the side of the ramp and everybody walked by us. It was so cool. Another fun fact about that WrestleMania for me as well, too, is if you ever see that young girl crying doing the John Cena engagement thing, that girl, wherever she is, I'd love to have her on this podcast. I sat right next to her, and they didn't put me on TV. So that was my second WrestleMania. My third WrestleMania was 35 in MetLife Stadium, and we sat close enough that we were on the floor, that we were close enough to still see. If you watch Total Divas that year, you can see me standing in the background at the end when the wrestlers were coming out. So my point is, if you're going to go to WrestleMania, save up, break the piggy bank, and sit as close as you can, because that's where the real experience is.
That's good advice, because I had a friend, Bon Vertigo. He went to, I think 2 years ago or 3 years ago, he was at Mania weekend, and he was there, and he went to WrestleMania. He was behind the Tron. So he saw nothing. Right. He could barely see anything that was going on. And he was texting us because we're all sitting at home watching. We're like taking naps in between, like just because it's so long. Right. But yeah, like we're just like, we're watching the whole show. It looks great, but like I don't know about you, how you're doing it right now.
Exactly. It's not worth the money. It's not worth the time to sit there. Hey, if you just want to be there, be there, then spend $50, $100 and sit in the nosebleed. But for me, we spent accidentally $700-800 for the seat, because when we sat down, we actually got to take the chairs home. So that's my
Oh, that's
WrestleMania
cool.
weekend. It was cool. So away from WWE and back to you, how did you find your first pro wrestling school?
I just Googled it. I looked for wrestling schools in Toronto, and the first one that popped up was, I mean, I got really lucky. The first one that popped up, it was close to me, and it had on their like alumni page, it had Gail Kim, it had Angelina Love, it had Tracy Brooks, it had Taylor Wilde, and I was like, oh, perfect. This is close. This is where like some great girls have trained. It literally like fell into my lap. It was just such perfect location, training, everything about it was great. I can't say enough good things about Squared Circle, other than like I just wish they were still open.
Do you ever feel that just sometimes like we're just destined to do things? Like, how could it be possible that you live so close and all the stars align for you to go to this wrestling school?
Yeah, honestly, it doesn't even make sense, because even not only did like I live close, and like I went to go look at the place and it looked great and I was excited to start, but they started doing an all girls training class literally as I was signing up. It was the trainer would be Taylor Wilde for 5 months, and it was just like a good introductory into it. So yeah, it was literally like perfect timing, like all the stars aligned. I felt like it was meant to be at that point.
So what did you do to prepare for pro wrestling school?
Did I do anything? I don't remember. I was 15 when I started, so I don't even know if like preparation was on my mind. I was always an active kid. Like I was doing karate at the same time. So I definitely felt that like I was ready to take bumps and, get hit and hit back, and I could keep up cardio wise. And it really did help a lot, I will say. Like if you're ever thinking of getting into wrestling, get your cardio up, try some martial arts classes just to sort of get the experience before you go and hit bump on that mat.
I always explain to people that when I started wrestling and I was like best of the best of the people around me, or one of the best, I can wrestle in that ring for 15, 20 minutes with no problem. But if you said to me, hey, Tristen, go on the treadmill and run a mile consistent, I can do it. Can't do it. Like that in-ring cardio is different from the out-ring cardio. Yeah, don't get it wrong. If you have a little bit of cardio outside the ring, it makes it easier for you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely it's not easy. And a lot of people are humbled extremely quickly when they get into that pro wrestling ring the first time and have to run a blow-up drill.
Oh yeah, I'll never forget some guy's first day. He came in, he had eaten like a bowl of pasta before he started for whatever reason. I guess he like figured he needed to eat before training, and immediately like first blow-up drill goes to throw up.
So a story I've never told to anybody. When I was in Team 3D Academy with Bubba and Devon, Dudley, Brother Ray, Bully Ray in Florida, Bubba wanted me to participate in the advanced class because I was in the beginner class. He said, hey, kid, what are you doing later on? I said, nothing, sir. He goes, why don't you come back later on to the advanced class? Oh, really? Oh, really? So I'm in the class with QT Marshall, Leva Bates, and, all these other, great people that are doing great things today. But before that, I said, you know what? My house is about 45 minutes away, and with traffic, it's maybe an hour. Let me stay around the area. Let me go eat. So I went to Chipotle. If anybody knows me, I love spicy food, and we know where this is going. So I went to eat Chipotle. I got me the extra spicy salsa. I ate it. It was time to go back to the class. Maybe like 4 hours later, I started running the blow-up drills, and all of a sudden, my stomach started churning. I said, uh-oh, I'm about to throw up. So I stopped running. We were hitting the ropes, and I stopped running. And then Bubba goes, why'd you stop running? I said, I feel like I'm about to throw up. He goes, good, keep running. So I keep running, and then I stop. And then Devon goes, what did that man tell you to do? I said, he told me to keep running, sir. He goes, then why are you stopping? I said, because I feel like I'm going to throw up. And Bubba goes, you better not throw up in my ring. You better swallow it and keep running. So I keep running, and I feel, Alexia, the vomit burning coming out of my stomach, and it's in my mouth, and I swallow it back, and I keep running.
That's such an awful feeling.
But you know what? I didn't throw up in the ring.
That's what matters.
Because if I threw up in the ring, I don't know what kind of calisthenics they would have done. Obviously, I would have had to clean it, but I was not throwing up in the ring. That's my story. So the moral is, do not eat pasta or spicy foods before you get into the ring.
No, definitely don't do that. Also, don't wrestle with a cold, because like I've gone to training with like a cold, and the first bump, and just snot flew out of my nose.
A lot of people don't understand when you take a bump, it's like you're in a controlled car accident. Like your
Yeah,
whole entire body wants to, it hits the mat and like your organs go flying around. Why do we do this, Alexia? Why?
we love
You
pain.
love pain. I do it for the people. Looking back at your first day, what was your mindset walking into the pro wrestling school?
I was nervous. I was definitely super nervous because as much as I knew, like, okay, I do karate, like, there's got to be some similarities. I didn't know what they would be. So I didn't even know how much it would help me. I didn't know what we would be doing. I meeting a bunch of new people that day. So a lot of nerves. But as the day went on, like, I definitely got more comfortable, realized it was something I felt confident doing. I also I had to prove to my parents that I could do this because I was 15. They were the ones paying for wrestling school. They're the ones saying, you got to keep your grades up and you have to actually be good at it. You can't just kind of go do, like, if you're bad at it, why are we going to pay?
Good point.
So yeah, I feel like I had a lot to prove, and it definitely, that first day started off very nerve wracking, but got the hang of it pretty quickly.
So let's break time travel rules. And I want you to go visit yourself right before you go into the wrestling school, because they say you're not supposed to see yourself because you'll mess up the time-space continuum. Right. So give yourself some advice to 15-year-old Alexia. What would you tell her right before she walks into the wrestling school for the first time?
I would tell her, take a deep breath and you're going to be fine. That's really it. There's nothing to worry about. These people here aren't going to let you get hurt. You just got to listen to them and just be calm. Don't overthink it.
There you go. Good advice.
The best advice actually I ever got from Taylor Wilde was, don't let me see you think.
Yeah, that's really good advice. A lot of people who don't understand that, yes, that's because sometimes you could see the wheels spinning while people are in the ring.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really good advice. Shout out to Taylor Wilde.
Yeah, she was, honestly, I couldn't have asked for a better first trainer.
When was your first match? Who was it against, and were you ready for it?
I think I was definitely ready. It was July 2013, I believe. And it was a mixed tag. It was me and a man named Cody 45, who is now a referee here, against Angelina Love and Marcus Marquez, he was a trainer at Squared. That was my first match. It was it was like a Canada Day fair kind of thing, but it was in front of thousands of people. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I was very nervous. Like, I think I almost peed my pants. Because I remember everyone saying, like, oh, like, be careful out there. There's a lot of people. And as soon as I heard there's a lot of people, I was like, oh no, why are there so many people? Like, totally forgot that fans existed.
I always have that same feeling before I go through the curtain. I just hold it and just pray for the best.
I either hold it or I pee like 4 times.
I agree.
There's no in between.
I agree because people ask me, do you still get nervous? Every single time. Every time I get nervous, and then I come through the curtain and I just forget everything that I was nervous about, and I just do what I do best.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you do differently within your first match now that you can look back at it now?
I definitely try and like do more. I was very sort of like, okay, like, you guys, just tell me what to do. I didn't want to step on anyone's toes. I was just like, like, obviously I'm very green. You just tell me where you want me, what you want me to do. And I definitely feel like I could have been like, hey, like, can I do this to you? Or can we try this? I could have been a little more assertive in that way. Cause like, I've watched it back. I think I do like nothing. I hit like 3 forearms and that's it. But like, I mean, the match wasn't bad at all, but I definitely could have been a bigger part of it than more of a, basically almost like a side character. Like, I'd come in, I'd either get hit, I'd give a bit of heat, and then get out of the ring.
Hey, it works. First match, you can look back at it. There's a lot of things that we could all do differently, but I'm sure in all your matches, from what I've seen, you do a lot more than four arms now. So you've improved.
Yes, I did it.
So speaking to another Canadian wrestler, his name is Jeremy Prophet. I discovered that Canadian independent pro wrestlers aren't getting the same opportunities as it comes to exposure to the WWE and AEW like us independent wrestlers here in the United States. Do you, Alexia, believe that the scales are turned in favor of American independent pro wrestlers?
100%. And like, I love you guys, like Americans. I love when you guys come over to wrestle. I love coming to wrestle you guys, but like, it's so hard to not like, basically when you're an American wrestler, you have such an advantage. And I don't mean that in a mean way at all, but you have almost every major American company, like wrestling company at your fingertips. For us, we, even just crossing the border is risky. Like I can easily name 10 people, 10 very talented people who might be signed right now, or who could have probably been signed right now, that I got banned just for trying to wrestle over the border, not even make money, just like literally go wrestle and come home.
Not including yourself. Not including yourself. Because it's easy for us to say ourselves, right? We know that you're on the list. Aside from you, give me 3 Canadian pro wrestlers that you think should be signed to a contract anywhere in America.
Mike Bailey, Lufisto, and the tag team TDT.
Why did you choose those 4 people?
They are some of the most talented wrestlers I've ever seen. Whatever show they're on, they get the biggest reaction. They are just so good at what they do. And they've been doing this a long time, and they're all people that, you know, had not been for the border, probably would be. I know Mike Bailey was doing huge things just before he got banned, and that was right before the first cruiserweight tournament. And everyone thought for sure he would be a part of it just because he's so good, and he couldn't be at the time. And I think like his ban is just ending now.
Right.
Like that's 5 years of having to avoid one of the biggest wrestling countries in the world. Lufisto, she's been around forever. She knows the struggles of trying to get a job, and it's so hard. TDT, they are without a doubt one of the best tag teams I've ever seen wrestle live.
I would like for you to take TDT and stick them in any promotion. Where do they fit best and why?
AEW, I think, right now. I think they're a little less, like, I guess, family friendly than WWE would like. They're just a lot aggressive. They're just really gruff, like lumberjack French Canadian men. And I don't know how well that would come off on WWE's product, but I feel like AEW would really stand out.
What do you feel, in your opinion, needs to be changed to even the scales for Canadian independent wrestlers to have the same opportunity as us independent American pro wrestlers?
I think there's one of 2 things. Either the first one, I doubt. I doubt we're going to be able to change the laws because it's an American law that needs to be changed. So we can sort of lobby as much as we want. It really needs to be a big change on the U.S. side. Like the reason that Americans can come into Canada and wrestle no problem is because Vince McMahon lobbied the Canadian government.
Really?
Yes. So he did that because it's much when you have a traveling show, most of you guys are American, most of your shows are American. You come into Canada, you don't have to worry about getting work visas for all your American guys. I don't know the exact details, but that's basically the story is, come to Canada, lobby the government so that it's a lot easier. You don't have to get all these special paperwork for everybody.
What if everybody in Canada just worked together and made their own billion-dollar promotion? Then at that point, it puts you on a radar to where the WWE or AEW would want to steal you from these organizations and go through the red tape and paperwork just to have you.
That's honestly, like, that would be ideal. That's like the ideal thing to do is everyone just works together. We create this one great promotion with all this talent. We use everyone's production skills. We use everyone's, promoting skills, story writing skills. We just put it all together and make like this great show. And I really think that's what we should be doing. I know in Ontario, there's so many promotions that not everyone works. Like it should be easy to work together, but it's almost harder for people to work together because everyone wants to stand out. But I think like the only way we're going to get as much exposure as an American would is if we all work together, because we already know that there's not as much exposure here. So why are we trying to pretend that we can do it on our own? We can't. We have to work together.
So what about all the individual pro wrestling promoters? Some of them would have to give up some of their power in order to make this succeed. Do you think that'd be something that they'd be interested in? I know you're not a promoter, but what do you think?
I definitely know some that would, for like 100%. They're willing to put the product first. Obviously you have guys like some promoters with egos that are a little big and don't want to do that. But it hurts to see that because like a lot of wrestlers know that like working together is the only thing that's going to help us. Like we know that the promotions have to work together. So, and we're just honestly at this point, where as wrestlers, we're trying to like take a stand and really just start our own stuff if that's what it takes, and bring on whatever promoters are willing to come with us. So yeah, like it sucks that there's some promoters that probably won't want to work together, but the ones that do, I honestly think they're better for it.
And after learning about this issue, I 100% became an ally of my Canadian brothers and sisters up there, because if everybody has the opportunity, everybody wants the same thing that I want, but because you live in another country doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to get it. They have it here. The WWE, AEW, they have it here. I know people that have been on AEW Dark last episode, the week before that. I know people that are on AEW. I know people that are in WWE, and they're American. They're from New Jersey. But why can't people in Canada get the same exact exposure? And it's because you're only a country away. The way it was put to me by another Canadian pro wrestler is that you're only 7 hours away. You're much closer to Florida, the performance center of WWE, and Jacksonville, where AEW is running. You're much closer than California, drive-wise and time-wise. So I'm an ally for you guys, and I'm here to champion for you guys, because I want you guys and gals out there to get the same as opportunities that I got, and that's why we're here today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And like, it's just like a lot of us will kind of like go on a rant every now and then because we get frustrated that we're like, oh, we're doing all this work and nobody sees it. But that's just the thing. Like we need people like you to help us sort of get our names out there and like explain to other people that like, you know what, it's really hard just to get into the country, even for like seminars and tryouts and stuff. Like we have to prove that we've got real jobs, that we're not making money, that, you know, like all that kind of stuff. So it's really stressful to make a name for yourself wrestling wise, being Canadian, because you hit a certain like ceiling, and very few people can cross that into the US, and then even fewer at that point can succeed.
So for my listeners that are actually pro wrestling fans, recommend an independent promotion that you would recommend for them, that you suggest that they check out to become exposed to some Canadian professional wrestling talent.
So C4, if you ask me, is the #1 Canadian promotion. It's like Canada's PWG is how I'm going to describe it. Crazy shit, crazy crowd. Like it's got some of the best wrestlers in the world on there. So C4 is at the top. And then there's a couple of smaller promotions you can check out, like Crossbody Pro Wrestling is a big one. Femme Fatale, they only run once, like a couple times a year, but they're an all women's promotion, and they have a lot of good girls there. I'm currently the champion, so of course I'm going to put them over. But, and Kaizen Pro Wrestling out of Nova Scotia, really good. They're a new company, but like top-notch talent, top-notch production, really fun to watch.
So for somebody not understanding because they're not a wrestler, or they are a wrestler and they may not understand, what makes the Canadian independent scene different from the American independent scene?
I definitely noticed we have a different style of wrestling, and I noticed it when Americans come over, and it's very subtle. It's just in like certain moves that we do, because like a lot of Canadians, there's not a ton of schools, so we all trained in the same place. So a lot of us have, anyone who trained at Squared can do a lot of lucha-based things very easily. And like we don't whip it out because we're like, oh, well, we can all do it. Why would we all do the same things?
Good point.
And then we watch, you know, like Americans come over and they start doing them, and we're just like, oh, like, yeah, like of course you guys would do everything you learned in training. Why are we not doing that? And it's because we don't want to be like each other. We're all trying to stand out from each other, but that's because there's just so few of us. Whereas Americans, you guys, there's so many of you, and there's so many different places to train that you guys can just do everything you learn. And no one really says like, oh, well, this person does it, so, you know, I can't do it. That makes sense.
That makes sense, because I can think of, off the top of my head, I can think of 3 wrestling schools in Jersey, and I'm sure that there's more. I could think of 4 in New York. I could think of 2 in Pennsylvania, and they're all within, from me, they're all within maybe 2-3 hours. So the choices are there. I get it. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's just like, yeah, because like in Ontario, I can name I think now there's the most schools that there's ever been, and in the entire province, which is like a fairly large province, like it takes 8 hours to drive to like north of just to get north of the province and not even drive the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of maybe 5 schools, and that's the most there's ever been at one time.
Wow. Hey, well, I'm here for you guys.
And like, and like a lot of the prairie provinces, there's nothing out there.
Wow. So some people just never get to live the dream.
No, they got to travel. You got to go to Vancouver. You got to go to Quebec, the Maritimes. There's not, yeah, you really, if you're, depending on where you are in Canada, you got to move if you want to wrestle.
So doing some searching on the internet, I don't know if you know, but you were recently placed on a list of 10 female athletes Impact Wrestling should consider hiring.
Yes, I saw that list. I was.
If Impact Wrestling, WWE, AEW, or some other big name wrestling promotion is listening, why are you the best person to be signed to a contract?
Why am I the best person? I work hard. I don't think necessarily I'm the greatest wrestler in the world, but I will give you my all every time. I'm willing to change up whatever needs to be changed up. And this is something I love to do. You're never going to catch me saying, I don't want to be here. I hate this. I'm always going to be grateful for everything. This is just, it's a business I love, and it's a business I love. It's something that I love to do. So you're always going to get 100% out of me no matter what.
I did notice that you were afforded some opportunities with Impact Wrestling. How did those opportunities come to be for you?
Really, I wrestled for Scott Moore's promotion BCW like a couple times. I think I managed once, and I wrestled like a dark match once. I had met Tommy Dreamer at a Greektown show,
Mm-hmm.
and so they were kind of in Toronto. They were doing I don't remember what pay-per-view it was, but then there was a taping the next day. So they invited me, hey, come hang out for the pay-per-view. Came to hang out. Next day, they booked me for the taping against Jordan Grace. And it was just a squash match. Like, it wasn't anything crazy, but everyone loved it. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, had fun. Thanks, guys. Like, hope to see you again.
Right.
Next set of tapings, Scott's like, hey, come down to Windsor. Next set of tapings after that, hey, come down to Windsor. And that's really how it kind of was. I know a lot of people thought I was signed at the time, but no, it was literally just like, okay, you want to come out? We've got spots for you.
It was a date-by-date basis.
Yeah.
So what do you think that you did to stand out in that match that they said, hey, we need to have this young woman here with us?
I don't even know. I guess I worked a lot on like personality, because I knew I'm not hitting a ton of stuff. I gotta sell around. I gotta make everything look legit. I gotta, try and up the personality a bit, have good facial expressions. And I guess I did something right, to be honest, for them to keep asking me back.
Who is Alexia Nicole?
Alexia Nicole is, I gotta be honest, Alexia Nicole's trying to refigure herself out. COVID has definitely made me re-examine who Alexia Nicole is as a worker, as a character, all that. Like, she started off as like the cutesy Disney princess. Then she went to the Regina George, very mean girl, bratty girl. And I don't know who she is now. We're still trying to figure that out now.
So this podcast and other media platforms that you've been on, such as Impact Wrestling, YouTube, and other podcast interviews, these things will make us live forever. What do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy. That's a good man. You ask good questions. I want my legacy. I just want to be someone like looked at as someone who went out there and gave it their all every time. I don't want anyone to look at me and think like that I phoned it in or half-assed it any time. I want people to look back and say, you know what, she always gave 100%. She always worked hard. Because here's the thing, everyone's going to have a bad match or a few bad matches, and you can't let those define you. So I definitely just want people to look back and say, you know what, she worked hard. She gave it her all. She didn't bitch out on anything.
What is next for Alexia Nicole?
Next for Alexia Nicole is I mean, we're in a reevaluating period of who she is, but I think next is just grinding it out and working more and just getting better and better and picking up some wins and getting eyes on her. I think that's really where she is. Alexia Nicole's going to work, is just working. And that's going to continue for a bit. I don't know if there's a signing in the soon future, but I'm hoping that hard work is going to push to that.
Well, I hope that it happens to pay off for you. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the Bubblegum Princess, Alexia Nicole. Alexia, tell everybody how they can find you outside of the Tristen Law Show.
So you can find me on Twitter at It's Alexia Nicole, on Instagram at Alexia Nicole. I have a Big Cartel store and a PWT store. PWTs is the website /bubblegum. Big Cartel, just type in Alexia Nicole Wrestler Big Cartel on Google, should pop up. And if anyone's interested, we are doing Backyard Pro Season 3, which is something we started here to kind of keep us busy during COVID. It's basically an SNL parody of backyard wrestling. We're accepting donations if anyone wants to help out with production and travel, because we're trying to do it as safely as possible. So you can find that on GoFundMe if you just look for Backyard Pro Season 3. But yeah, you don't have to donate to watch it. It's always going to be free on YouTube. But if you'd like to help out in any way, because it's just a bunch of wrestlers that love wrestling that are trying to have some fun. So you can always check that out. And yeah, I'm, like I said, Twitter, Instagram. I'm not on YouTube though. I know some people ask me if I had a YouTube channel. I'm not on there. I'm working on it though. So you might see me there soon.
Well, Alexia, it was a pleasure to have you here. I'm going to follow you on Twitter on Instagram. I'm going to follow you on Instagram because I don't believe that I do. But thank you so much for the time. And ladies and gentlemen, do not go anywhere, because when I get back, I'm going to give you my thoughts on this interview and what's up next time on the Tristen Law Show.
Hello to all of you Tristen Law Show podcast listeners. This is Frank Mandolini. You may not recognize this voice. I am the Italian podcaster who talks about the business side of wrestling. Yeah, I know, it's quite niche. But if you look for Last Minute Wrestling Podcast on all of your social media and wherever you get your podcast, you've been amazed to find interviews with people such as Rob Van Dam or Matthew Gregg from Botchamania and many others, so you get to know many aspects of the wrestling business that normally you don't hear in wrestling podcasts. Because let's face it, who wants to hear another guy talk about Monday Night Raw? Yeah, me neither. So guys, go to lmwpodcast.com or search for LMW Podcast everywhere in the interweb. And remember guys, this is Frank Mandolini from the Last Minute Wrestling Podcast, and you stay safe.
Welcome back to the Tristen Law Show, and I hope that you're having a great time. We're looking to promote your band or brand here in the Tristen Law Show. Just contact the Tristen Law Show at tristenlawshow.com or go to tristenlawshow@gmail.com for more info. So tell me, what did you think of Alexia Nicole? Let me tell you, I've never met Alexia Nicole, in case you haven't figured that out, and I think she's cool. She's cool. I really hope that she gets some opportunities here in the States, or, just an opportunity in pro wrestling to achieve the dream at the level that she wants it to be. Alexia, thank you so much for the time. Shout out to all you independent professional wrestlers in Canada trying to cut your teeth, because the inequalities, from what I'm understanding from talking to you guys, are there. We are going to get back into the Canadian inequalities by interviewing Canadian pro wrestlers, but next week we're going to take a break. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, we are going to take a break because it's the Super Bowl of pro wrestling, and next weekend is WrestleMania. And what we're going to do is we're going to tackle the top 5 WrestleManias of the previous decade. Look for the link in the description of this episode, and or visit tristenlawshow.com. Find it where you find it and go in and vote. If you like this episode, I need a favor from you. Yes, I'm talking to you. Go ahead and share this on your favorite social media platform, and don't forget to tag myself for the show. Don't make this be the thing that you do. Let's make this thing that we do. You can also walk up to a random stranger and tell them to listen to the Tristen Law Show. Yeah, they might think it crazy, but who cares what other people think, right? Fine. If you're worried about being judged, go on over to TristenLawShow.com and at least buy a shirt because people will know that you're really, really cool. Rate the Tristen Law Show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and leave a review, please, because reviews mean a lot. Whichever podcast platform you use to listen, please follow or subscribe to get notified when new episodes drop. The best part is that it's free. Learn about myself and the Tristen Law Show by typing TristenLawShow.com in your internet-enabled device for more info. I'll be waiting for you next week. I'm Tristen Law, and you've been listening to the Tristen Law Show. And until next time, adios.